Hi, gang. Welcome back to What's the Worst That Could Happen. I'm your host, Abby Whitaker, and today I have the lovely Bek from RBB and Unbreakable here to have chat all things business. So I'm excited to have you. Thank you so much for coming along. And I would just love you to introduce yourself and what you do, a little bit of your background, and we can get into it.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is really cool. I'm liking this podcast studio situation. So my name is Bek. I am the founder of RBB Fitness Studio and now Unbreakable, which is an 8-week breakup boot camp. I've been in the industry now, the fitness industry, for just over 10 years. I have owned my own business for 7, which is nuts. I can't believe I'm still going. I know. I'm like, yes, I've made it. So my studio is Australia's first hit to the beat workout. So everything we do is pre-choreographed to the beat of music. We do strength, we do core, we do cardio, obviously, but we've now also just introduced Pilates to the beat.
Yay.
So we're like this whole holistic experience, which has been just such a fun evolution of the product. And this year is the first year we're actually licensing the program. So the program now is fully accredited and is able to be licensed to other clubs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that.
Yeah, which is amazing. And then Unbreakable is my brand new baby. She's only a couple of weeks old. We launched the first round of the boot camp on Monday this week, which has been probably the biggest vulnerable journey of my entire business experience. Going through a breakup, healing from a breakup, and then taking what I learnt and condensing it into an 8-week course to help other women heal from what can be the most soul-crushing experience of their entire life. So, yeah, I consider it the biggest honour that I have these amazing women trusting me with 8 weeks of their life to heal and recover and come out the other side, the better version, the version they've always wanted to be.
I love that. Amazing. So proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's it's been a juggle, I will say. Like, I take my hat off to you. It's like, I see everything that you do, and I was like, okay, now I'm technically running 2 businesses, maybe 3 if you want to count doing personal training as well. And I literally felt like I was swimming the whole time, but like against the stream for 2 months straight, trying to get this thing grown and off the ground. And obviously, because it was a new business, I did a lot of it myself. So it felt like the old days. Yeah,
totally. I had this mentor who was always like, she was a perfectionist, she's amazing, and she'd always say like a swan, you know, just effortless on top, but under the water you're like paddling hard.
Literally. That is literally what it's like. It's kind of like, you know, we've kind of talked a little bit about the whole like Instagram generation and how a lot of that is coming down now, which I think is amazing. But where from the surface everything looks great. On the surface, she looks calm and ready. But underneath, it's literally this absolute roller coaster. And I think one of the big things that they don't talk about before you get into business is how vulnerable it makes you. You literally feel like you're putting your heart on the line every single day because you throw your heart and your soul into whatever it is that you do. And odds are, I think, especially as women, we don't start businesses unless it's something we're incredibly passionate about, which is the way to be, right? A business really won't get off the ground unless you eat, breathe, sleep it. So having my heart so invested in these businesses and then starting up this new business has just been the biggest learning curve for me in the last 2 months, kind of, you know, taking, okay, this is what I've learned. How do I actually make that a product?
Yeah.
How do I create that? And how do I put it into a beautiful thing that resonates with people? How do I market? How do I sell? It's been good.
Yeah, totally. You fully want your business to reflect not only your values, but also like aesthetically who you are, like every product, every little thought and effort you put into your business, like you want it to be reflected out into the world in a certain way, right? That reflects who you are. So it does become such a vulnerable thing I totally get that. I get really protective over stuff I do because I'm like, this is a direct reflection of me.
Yeah.
So although it's not necessarily about being perfect, it's about being something that I'm proud of, that I'm happy to refer people to, or, you know, have an exchange with people for. So, yeah, I totally get that.
Even before, like, when I decided I wanted to do Unbreakable, it was really interesting. So how it kind of came about was with RBB, with the studio, we have a podcast, and we had been doing this series on strong women. And so we were interviewing all of these beautiful women, and we had some amazing people. Like, do you know Mel Brown? She's like a money expert, and we had all these amazing women who had made these incredible comebacks from times in their life. Like for her, she went through a horrific divorce and was left with nothing in her early 30s, and she's now turned that entire thing around into, she's obviously a financial advisor where she teaches other women how to get on top of their finances. And you know, so we're having all of these amazing people, and my studio manager, who's also Abby, she said to me, she's like, do you feel confident sharing your story around what you'd been through? And this was about 8, maybe 10 months after I'd been through the breakup, and I felt like I was at a position that I was ready to talk about it. And so we did a 3-part series on it, which is how long it turned out to be. And we talked about it, and these 3 episodes just exploded in a way that I don't think I even imagined. Within 24 hours, I was over in India at the time when we launched them, and within 24 hours, it had put us in the top 5% of podcasts for Australia.
Wow.
Which was nuts. And I had just hundreds and hundreds of women reaching out to me, thanking me for what I shared, but also sharing their stories and saying, oh my goodness, like, you've helped me realize that the relationship I'm in is toxic, or this guy that I keep going back to is bad news.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. And from there, I kind of stepped away, and I just went, there's something in this. You know, that's something that people want. Women need this. And I personally obviously went into the relationship, as we've kind of talked about, quite naive.
Yeah.
And came out the other side of it a completely different woman. And now I feel so much more equipped in relationships. And I became so passionate about wanting to educate other women on that.
Yeah.
And so when we decided to do it, it was probably October last year. And I spent the entire back end of 2023 literally mapping out what the branding of this would look like. So we created a mood board, we created a color scheme, fonts, you know, and we went into the crux of the internet to kind of go, okay, so this thing's going to tell a journey, and it's going to start with black and white and like words spoken over you. And we crafted this whole 6-week marketing journey of what it would look like. And so from the outside, it kind of looks like, oh, this is this beautiful thing, and Bek's just like chucking up videos. But there was actually so much work in the back end that went into it, where we created this like black and white that slowly introduced pinks that then became red. And, you know, it's this whole thing that we built. And so it's spot on, right? Where you go, this is a story I'm wanting to tell. This is the level of vulnerability I'm putting into it, because obviously it was a personal story. But then also creating a product that is so appealing and emotion evoking to people.
Yeah, totally. You want to make them feel a certain way once they're in it.
Yeah, there's a craft to it, and there's a craft to not selling too much.
Yeah.
So I did literally 4 weeks of not even telling people what I was doing, just posting and just creating engagement, creating following around it, and then dropping the bomb of like, this is what we're doing, but still then only making that every 4 days that I would sell. And every day in between that would be just entertainment, building stories, like creating emotion, and then selling, you know, like there is an art to it.
Yeah, totally. It's like, it's carefully curated. It's well thought out. It's sleepless nights.
Yes.
It's very carefully put together because it's so special and so vulnerable.
Yeah.
I love that. I would love to take you back to the beginning of your business journey, and just tell us like a little bit about that, and even just as your first business kind of going into RBB, how that came about, and then what you've kind of felt and learnt since then.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am 100% unemployable, as I'm sure you are as well. I was working in corporate. I had a business degree, and I loved it. I loved getting all dressed up every day and like going and doing the corporate thing. And I really, really enjoyed it, but I knew I was made for more. And I would find myself getting so incredibly frustrated because I would get my work done in half the time of everyone else, and I would spend the other half of my day doing everyone else's work for them. And I can remember getting myself to a point that it was like, what do I actually want to do with the time I've been given? And do I feel like this is truly fulfilling my purpose? And whilst I loved it for the season, I was in my early 20s. I was a certified personal trainer and a group fitness instructor at the time, and I was doing group fitness before and after work and on weekends. And I loved it. That was the highlight of my day. And I had gotten myself to a point where in my corporate job I was offered a promotion. However, they said in order to take this promotion, I needed to stop the fitness stuff before and after work, because it meant that I may have to stay late at nights, and, my schedule would be a lot less 9 to 5. Yeah. So I sat down and I had a really good think about it, and I just thought, okay, what is the thing that brings me the most joy? And I actually went and saw like a business coach at the time, and I had worked for her in the past when I was at uni. I actually had worked as her PA, and so we were still friends, and I actually spoke to her about it, and she said to me, close your eyes and think about if you could do anything every day for the rest of your life, do not put money into the equation, what would you do? And I said, without a shadow of a doubt, I would teach group fitness for the rest of my life. And so she said, well, you know what you need to do. And so I handed in my resignation.
Oh my gosh, just got goosebumps.
And I actually went on full time, or I started my first business as a personal trainer in Fitness First in a corporate gym. And I was still teaching, I think, like 14 group fitness classes a week at that point across like 7 different clubs for them. And I very quickly got myself to a point in my personal training business where I realized time in exchange for money can only take you so far. And the biggest issue I had was that prime personal training time was in prime group fitness teaching time. And so I could either choose to teach a class or I could take on a client. Teaching a class was the thing that brought me joy. Taking on a client earned me 2 to 3 times more money. Yeah. And so it was this cat where I got stuck. And I can remember I went home during the Easter break to my family, and I was getting frustrated. I was feeling stuck. I felt financially pressed. And I, at the time, had been doing research for my own clients around high-intensity interval training and the benefits of intervals. Now, this is like 2012. So this is when F45, I think, opened their first club in 2012. Yeah. So HIIT training was not a thing. It was not known. It was very new. And boutique studios was not a thing, unless it was yoga or Pilates. That was it. And so I just put a post on Facebook where I essentially said, hey, I'm launching a brand new addition to my personal training business, which is these high intensity interval training group classes. Legally, I could train 4 people at one time on the gym floor. And so I opened it up to 4 people at one time. I made a little video of this is what it would kind of look like. And I posted that. And within, I think it was half a day, I had 25 sessions booked in.
Wow.
And so straight away I went, oh, this is something people want. right? And so I started running these classes and it very quickly became my personal training business. However, I was this radical little 22-year-old female who was running these classes all day on the gym floor. I was loud, I was radical, I had my people doing types of moves that just like in a conventional gym were not done, right? The other personal trainers then started complaining to management where they were like, she's loud, she's taken up space, like they're like, we're really stoked for her and what she's doing, but can she go use the group fitness room when it's empty? Like she takes up space, the room's empty, like can she go there? So I went to management, had a meeting with them and they were like, look, we're really happy for you to go in and use that space, but it falls under a different guideline, which means you need to pay for the room. It doesn't fall under your personal training rent, right? And so I was like, cool, so if I fall under group fitness guidelines, what does that mean? And it meant I was no longer capped at 4 people. It meant I could take like 60 at a time. It meant I didn't have to wear my personal training uniform anymore. And it meant that I could utilize whatever was in that space, which was their sound system. And so that's what I did. I took my 25 sessions and I made them 1. And that's when my brain really started to tick. Because if you think I was making, I think it was $60 a session because everyone was paying $15 each, times 25, and then I put that all into 1 hour.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden my brain, I remember my first hour I made $250. I literally thought I'd won the lottery. I was like, this is what they mean when they say time in exchange for money and how you can actually like create a business where it's less time, less output, which meant I spent the rest of my time, like I was still doing one-on-ones, but I spent the rest of my time literally researching the product, creating this thing. And so I put my head down and I took myself to the US and I learned what do they do over there? What does a unique group fitness offering look like? And I experienced SoulCycle. And I went, that's what I want to do. I want to do SoulCycle. I want the feeling. I want to evoke the emotions. I want to take people to a place where it feels like a therapy session. Because, you know, regular commercial gym group fitness classes, monotonous, boring, same thing that I've been doing ever since the 80s. Like I wanted to create this thing where we were doing handstands and, you know, all these sorts of things that was just like so unheard of. And so I came back and I created that and the demand just continued to increase for these classes that I then put 2 on the timetable and then 3 and then 4. And so whenever the group fitness timetable didn't have their classes on, I just took the spots.
Yeah.
Right. And so it very quickly became this thing where I was across 2 clubs and I say all of this to say there was so much turmoil at the same time because what I was doing was radical.
Yeah, totally. Just fully trailblazing, like leading the industry.
Yeah, so just so different.
Yeah.
And so there were so many like members that were like, the stuff she's doing is dangerous. Like people are going to injure themselves, compliance. Like I had to deal with so much of that in the process. And it got to the point where I set up a membership base. I took the training program and it initially was just a cardio class. I made a strength class. I made a core class. Like I built out these formats. I introduced all the recent research that had come in from the top training facilities in the US in terms of balance training and, you know, all these things that just were not things in group fitness classes. And it went to the point that it became like a full membership base where I had people paying $50 a week to be a member, to do these classes. And it was just this reoccurring revenue that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a thing. Then, of course, head office at the gym I was working at, which I mentioned before and I won't mention again, caught on to it and they said she's got to go. So they served me with a restrainer trade and kicked me out effective immediately.
Wow.
They fired me as a group fitness instructor and held me to my personal training contract. So I had put in my notice that I didn't want to do personal training anymore. You have to give 3 months notice. I put that notice in. And they said, no, we don't accept your notice, which is illegal, just putting it out there. And they served me with a restrainer trade that essentially said you cannot operate in the fitness industry for 12 months. So I then went into this huge legal battle. I was 23 at the time. I had literally no savings. I literally, everything I made from this group fitness class, I was reinvesting into the growth of this business because, you got to pay to start a business up. You got to pay for software. You got to pay, so all these things, everything I was making, I just put straight back into it. And then I actually had a mentor of mine from group fitness actually say, hey, we've got a little warehouse space. If you want to kind of operate underground for a little bit, you're welcome to set up space there and run your classes, which is what we did. I had it ticked off by lawyers because they straight up were like, legally, you're actually not doing anything wrong. So just because this company is attempting to shut you down, you actually, like as a restraint of trade doesn't stand up in a court of law, you can continue. So we continued to operate and we went into this 6-month insane legal battle where it was essentially every day I woke up and I questioned, am I going to rock up and not be allowed to do what I'm doing today? And that was in that moment, that was when I really, truly realized, if I didn't know it prior, that was when I realized, even if I do not make a cent from this, this is what I'm called to do every day. And so I just showed up every day. And we weren't allowed to market. We came to a settlement 6 months later with the company, and there was a lot of things I couldn't do. It was very, very expensive legal fees that I had to pay with a little zero amount of money that I had, and so I went on a payment plan to pay that off, and I just grew this business. 6 months after that, I had enough estimated cash flow, projected cash flow, to know I could take on my own space. So I then opened my own first studio space, and it was literally like a month or two that I was then allowed to start marketing.
Yeah.
And so I had to grow this entire thing by word of mouth. And so that was December 2016. And that's when we opened the first RBB studio.
Wow. Amazing. I actually haven't heard that story before. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was like, hands down, looking back on it, everything else I now have to face in business seems so mediocre in comparison to that, because like literally, like I wasn't turning over enough to even pay my monthly legal fees.
Yeah.
Like it was just this absolute stress. But the amazing thing about it is I had members. I would have members show up and give me $500 grocery vouchers.
Wow.
Bring me clothes. Like it was like that. I was getting my food from the food bank.
Yeah.
Like it was so humbling. It was definitely the hardest period in business I've ever been through. But now that I'm doing what I'm doing now and I've been able to grow it and step out from that, when you step into the fruit, and I'm not saying every day is not hard because every day is still hard, it makes you appreciate it so much more.
Yeah, totally. I guess like with that in mind, obviously your start off journey was like quite probably different to maybe other people who are starting businesses. But, sometimes I talk to business owners who've just opened their business and they're quite overwhelmed. And, there's that feeling like when you start a business, it's like it's like you're pushing up a hill.
Yes.
And then a lot of the time, I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but a lot of the time it's like right when you're at the top of the hill, you decide to quit or you decide to kind of like call it a day. And it's generally those business owners who like hit the peak that then they can start to feel that like downfall a little bit more, which is what you're talking about. And I think something recently I was talking to a business owner about this, and I was like, if you can just close your eyes and imagine, like, if you did close this space because it feels really hard right now and you're really overwhelmed, how would you feel in 5 years?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to go back to corporate? Are you going to, like, what is that going to look like? Is that going to feel harder than pushing through this part right now? What would your like advice be to someone at that stage? Because obviously there is it's a very fine line between keep on pushing and like it's just not working. Do you have some advice on that?
It's really interesting, right? Because I've obviously re-experienced all of this this year, launching a new business, and launching a new business in a space that is completely unique. And it's been a big learning curve where I actually treated it as an experiment, where I was like, okay, cool. So even if this fails, it's actually not a failure. It means I just haven't nailed my market just yet. And with the studio, I think what a lot of people underestimate when they start a business is actually how challenging it is to be successful in business.
Yeah.
The first 5 years, it's like 90% of businesses close.
Yeah.
Right? So what I would do, and this is the thing that I recommend to anyone who asks me about a business, is don't wait until the product is finished. Just start selling something now.
I love that.
And see if it's something that people actually resonate with. So the example with me is I was in the industry. I knew there was this like need for something, but I was kind of doing something that had never been done before. So I was trailblazing in, I guess, the way I was doing it, which means that I actually don't know if people are going to do this or want to actually put their money where their mouth is at. And so I could have very easily gone and gotten a loan and said, hey, I'm going to open this studio. This is my dream. And I have had so many people come to me and be like, I'm going to open a studio, and literally like try and open it and it never open, right? Or open and close. And I've seen over the last 7 years so many open, close, right? However, the way that I did it is I started running classes out of a gym space. I then had 1, 2, 3 classes, 4 classes, 5 classes, and they would fill, set up a membership base. And then I knew, okay, this is actually a product that people are willing to pay for.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm willing to make that risk.
Yeah.
To actually do that. I've done my business in a little bit of a different way in that I've never had a loan. So I've owned 100%. I had a business partner for a couple of years, but I own 100% of it now, but we've never once owed money.
Yeah.
And so we've literally, everything we make, we reinvested.
Yeah.
And so that kind of allowed me to go, all right, cool. So even if this does fail, I know I'm not going to be paying off X amount that I've borrowed. And so I just kind of went out being like, all right, I'm going to test the market. Yes, people are nibbling. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next level. And so that's what I would recommend to people, right? Is firstly, you have to love it with everything you have. So this is the advice that I would give to people is essentially, if you do not love it with everything you have, just don't do it, because it's going to literally take every ounce of energy. But there does come a point where you need to test the market, actually put feelers out there, see if it's something that people buy. Even like, I know with you, I've seen you do like expressions of interest and things like that. Like they are amazing ways that you can actually start seeing if this is something that people are truly interested in before you actually do all of the big end work.
Yeah, totally. That's really great advice. I love that.
Yeah. And I had a friend of mine is a CMO, and he was saying to me, so he also runs his own online courses, and he was saying to me, like with Unbreakable, he's like, don't build the course. Like, don't build it. Just pretend you've got it.
Yeah.
And then sell it.
Yeah.
And then if you sell it, build it.
Yeah.
Right? And
Totally.
so it's been this interesting thing where, like, to a regular person that feels weird because you're like, oh, I'm selling something, but I actually haven't even created it. But people actually don't need to know, because you could create this entire thing. And I actually have a close friend of mine created a product, and she took 12 months off work creating this product that was going to be amazing, and she was going to launch it and it's going to be incredible. And then she did not sell a single one.
Yeah.
You know, and my heart breaks for her in that. But I think if 12 months prior, she had have actually like started pre-selling this thing, she then would have known, or she would have gotten feedback from her market. And my business coach says to me all the time, specifically with online products, if you're starting something new in the industry, like in a new industry, sometimes it can take 30 attempts.
Yeah, totally.
Before you sell it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that what you're selling is wrong. It just means that you need to tweak it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can totally speak to that. I actually, when we launched our teacher training, Move Pilates Academy, teacher training business, I actually like committed to a studio or like a gym in Hervey Bay that I was going to take this course before I had even written it. Like, it was all in my head, of course.
Yes.
But like, I knew that I could do it, but I actually sold that before I'd even done it. And then I got feedback, like I did created and stuff. I got feedback from them and then decided to partner with someone who was going to like really elevate that and bring so much to that as well. And then, you know, launched it that way.
Yeah.
So I totally can speak to that. And I think it's such a valid point. I love it. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
I would love to fast forward now a little bit to where you are today with being like a female business owner. I know we've spoken about this before, not on camera, but just about how you found that and what challenges you faced with being a powerhouse like you are in the industry.
Thank you. Okay, firstly, I don't feel like a powerhouse in the industry.
You are, queen.
Thank you. It's definitely, it's such a, and I know we talk about this all the time, but you feel like such a fraud as a female. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I know definitely when I was running the studio, I didn't even think I knew what I was doing until a couple of years in. I finally was like, maybe you should actually give yourself credit for 2 seconds. And I think that's how we work as women, is we are like, who am I? Who am I to do this? And it takes so much more, like, whereas men, and love them to death, but they always like overbelieve in themselves and we underbelieve. And I know there's a lot of statistics around, like, you know, 60% of men or something apply for jobs that they're not qualified for, whereas it's like the opposite for women, where 60% don't apply because I'm definitely not good enough for that role. However, being a female in the industry, it's really interesting. Like, I feel like I was so sheltered as a child in that I had a great dad who like kind of was like, you can do anything. Right? And then, so I kind of believed that. And then you get into the industry or you get into business and you realize you're really just not taken seriously as a woman. I can remember when I first wanted to open my studio, signing the commercial lease, the real estate agent actually said to me on the phone, "Are you sure you can do this?"
Wow.
Right? And in hindsight, I get it. I was 23. I looked like I was 15. Like, I was a little female who realistically had no idea what she was doing, but was faking it. And like, my naivety really worked in my favor because I didn't know what was coming. I think if I did know, I probably would have been a little bit more like risk adverse. But I have found since then what is most challenging, and this is why, like, I really take my hat off to you. Like, Abby has 4 studios, guys. She's about to open her 4th, just putting it out there. It's always been such a dream of me to do the same thing, but because of how tumultuous my studio open was and the amount of physical and emotional pain I went through opening the studio with having a gym on my tail and legals and just everything, and doing it all completely on my own, has made me so much more hesitant to experience that pain again, even though I know that won't be the case. But I think it's because I've gotten myself through the mud to finally have breathing space again, that the thought of going back through the mud again is almost just soul crushing. It's destroying. Whereas I look at men, and we talked about this when I was in Singapore last year at the Fit Summit, and we had this big, beautiful awards night, and I was sitting at a table with the key Australian quote-unquote leaders in the industry. And so it was the owners of like Revel, it was Fitstop, Air Locker Training, One Playground, all those, World Gym, all those big Australian names when it comes to boutique fitness studio spaces or bigger studio spaces. They were all men. I was the only female.
Wow.
At the table. And obviously I am not in the leagues of those guys because they're all across the world and hundreds of locations. But to be there and to look around the room and go, oh, so the people who are actually making waves in this industry are men. And why is that the case?
Yeah, I was about to say, why do you think that is?
So I was speaking with someone about it literally after coming home from Singapore. And I was like, do you know JT, Justin Tamsin?
No.
Okay, so it was JT. I was talking to him, and he essentially was saying the main reason why, so he has a fitness podcast, and so he interviews a lot of these people, and he's been in the industry for a long time. And he said to me, the reason why men are so much more successful is because they don't give a fuck. Like, they are ruthless.
Yeah.
And in order to scale at the rate that you need to scale at, you have to literally be ruthless.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm not ruthless.
No.
Absolutely not.
I feel like as women, I get sad when someone hands in their 28 days notice to leave my studio. Like, I quite often cry.
Yeah.
Because you're so invested in those people, and, my heart is to help people, that it's actually the thing that's holding me back from growth, and I know that and I identify that. The other thing too, I think, is that as women, we somehow in the midst of all of that also need to have babies. And it's just the hard reality of it is one of my best friends is pregnant at the moment, and she is very high up in her field in corporate. And I was talking to her the other day, and she literally said to me, I can only take 3 months maternity leave, max. Like, she's like, I might even have to go back before the 3 months because of the fact that I have worked for the past 12 years to get myself to the point that I'm at right now, that if I take maternity leave, I will probably miss out on the job I've worked 12 years for.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, even being a business owner myself, obviously I don't face those sort of prejudices.
Yeah, the prejudices.
prejudices. I mean, when you're talking about the real estate, like even recently I've experienced, I am the partner or like the director for our studios, yet I have experienced real estate agents just call Jordan. And I'm like, talk to me. I'm the one who knows everything about this. Like, why are you like calling him? And it's just like, whatever. But, even myself as a business owner, it's like I am thinking very carefully about and planning like, okay, when would I like to have another child? Billy was like a happy surprise, but, we haven't kind of gone for another child because of that exact reason. It's like I can't be a mother and build our business up to the point I want it to be at the same time. Yeah. And it's like, how do you sort of work that out, I suppose?
In order for me to do what I need to do and be a mother at the same time, I would need to be in a position that I have a full-time nanny. It's the only way it's going to be possible. And I think looking at that is just like, and then is that great for the kids? Is that great for the child? How do I be the most amazing mother? And also too, that the work we are in is physical, how do we do that and have babies, keep a house, like do all the things that's expected? I know it's very different these days, and I will not be that old school wife, but how do we do all of that? And I think as women, we are so much more risk adverse because of those things. We think about people's hearts, people's feelings, our life, like, what's this going to look like? Like, we have a ticking clock. Like, I'm 32 now. I'm 32 this year. How many more years have I got? Like, okay, so I have to work for that and plan it and figure out all of the things. And I'm not even married yet.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like, it's like, I'm actually not even married. But then it's the whole extra thing of like, who's my person? You know, the whole thing. And so I think as women, it's really challenging because we take offense at things easier, even though we try not to. You know, the amount of work I've had to do on myself to not take offense, and yet I still do.
Yeah, everything often can feel personal.
Yeah.
Then it also depends on your time of your month, your hormones, how personal it feels.
Yep. And then I'm just happen to be bloated for half the month, and you know, like,
totally.
It's horrid.
Yeah.
So I think that is probably part of it. A lot of women, and this is the challenging component of it is, and we have spoken about this, where a lot of women who are doing big shit and are really like pursuing and trailblazing are masculine women. So they're women who are operating in their masculine more than their feminine. And naturally, I just can't do that. My nervous system is like, nope. You're not designed. And I did that for years and years and years, and it put me into burnout. And so it's the challenging component there where we actually work well flowing through our feminine, which is that caring, nurturing person. But that's not the person who's going to trailblaze and actually, you know, do the significant, scalable, rapid growth that we're seeing in the industry with men.
Yeah, totally. I get it. And I mean, having explored that path myself, of that, like that big rapid growth and idea of franchising and things, I don't know. I think I'm even, because of all, not even just because of the babies thing, but like because of the care and communities that I desire and the values that I hold, for me, franchising doesn't feel aligned because it feels like I don't want people to ever feel like they're just a number. And I'm not saying that that's what it is. Like, obviously it works and it's amazing and it's great and stuff. But for me, it doesn't feel aligned to my values anyway. And I think that that's probably to do with a lot of the things that you're talking about, you know, here. So yeah, it's really interesting to talk about and think about. How does, I wanted to ask you as well, like, how do you, given, you know, you found yourself sitting at a table multiple times where you're the only female, how does that feel? Like, is that lonely?
Yes. Yes and no. So I have definitely gotten myself to a place where I'm super comfortable around men. And I actually quite enjoy hanging out with guys. Like, that component of it, not as much. But when there is a woman there, which is very rare that there is, but when there is a woman there, it's like you're magnetized to her, and it's your heart just goes, like, this is amazing. So I do feel like in the industry, and like if we're talking specifically fitness industry, and I'm assuming a lot of other industries are like this, women are like catty as, right? It's like, she's my chief competition. And I actually read this article, I think it was in Forbes, where it was on why women don't help women, whereas men, it's a little bit different. And it's so funny because I think you and I are so much more in the space of we want to help as many people. We wear our hearts on our sleeves. We're genuine. We're authentic. What you see is what you get. And I think that's possibly why we are where we are. But this article said for women to get to the level of what most men would see as success. So let's say, for example, for us, 100 locations, just for the conversation's sake. So say it's 100 locations. If you're at 100 locations, you're considered successful in the industry. Because of the amount of work a woman has to do to get to that level, when she gets to that level, she does not want to help other women because she goes, it's not fair that I had to do that level of work to get to this level. Everyone else should have to do that level of work. And the same goes for corporate. So if women have to, you know, kiss asses and do whatever they have to do to get to CEO, CFO, the C-suite level, because of the amount of work they had to do to get there, they don't want other women to get there without going through the same work. And I think that's horrid.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it though. Like I can visualize that and understand that and see that.
It's heartbreaking, right? And I think, you know, you and I are setting out to change that and to actually be vulnerable and authentic. But I will say, like, I've been taken advantage of many times. I've had people try to replicate my product. I've had, you know, people come to me and ask for systems, ask for processes, ask for all of those things, but that's actually like saleable things. Right. And I've been very much like, absolutely, I'm more than happy to help. I've had people ask for copies of like my contractor contracts and, you know, like, and I'm more than happy to help people with that. But then it also very much has become a thing of people get close to you, become friendly with you to get something from you.
Yeah, I've experienced it too. It's such a fine line between gatekeeping and like protecting your IP and protecting like the work that you put in obviously into something, or the research, the time, the energy, the diligence.
Yeah.
So it is hard because you don't want to like gatekeep and you want to share, and I'm totally like that. Like I'm so happy to share everything, but then there's been times where I've been completely taken advantage of, ripped off, like which never feels nice. And it feels particularly worse because I would never do it to anyone else. And it's something I learned like years ago. I think I had this boyfriend who used to cheat on me heaps, and it hurts.
Love you. You're amazing. Hope you're watching this.
It hurts so much more because, and he always used to sort of accuse me of things like that. And I was like, he would accuse me because it was something that he was doing. So for him, it was imaginable, but for me, it was unimaginable because I didn't know how, like, it wasn't something that I would do or could, like, you know, I don't know. I digress there, but like, I feel
wasn't in your moral compass. Yeah.
I feel like at the times where I've been like so blatantly ripped off and copied, and it's been like a detriment to my business or my ideas and things, have been times where have shocked me because I would never do it to someone else. I think that was my point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I think that's why a lot of women are guarded in the industry, and it's really heartbreaking. But on top of that, I will also say just running a business in general is lonely. You know, like for the first time ever in your life, if you've gone from working full time or whatever you're doing to running a business, for the first time in your life, no one's telling you what to do. As a matter of fact, you're creating your own work. And that there is, well, you know, when you start out as a solopreneur, and like I would literally, and I still do this to this day, I take myself to food courts in shopping centres to be around people. Because I'd gone from this corporate world of 500 employees to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, what, like, and I get my energy from people.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, and it is so lonely, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, which we all don't, you're like, oh, what should I do today? Like, what is the thing that I should prioritize? You know, you actually have to create your own schedule, which is great. You know, that's why we do it. But then also too, it's so incredibly lonely. You know, like when I have people come into my studio and complain about the people they work with, I'm like, I wish they you know, like,
I wish I had someone to complain about.
I would complain about Karen in finance. Like, you know, like I am Karen from finance and marketing and sales and graphics and all of it. And, you know, and as I've built my team out, it's been amazing. And now obviously having a full-time studio manager has just been like the biggest godsend. Like I pay her to be my friend, literally.
Same.
I'm like, I hope you don't leave me because you're you're my friend. But then also too, like building out my staff and my team and all the rest of it. But still at the end of the day, it still starts and stops with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a challenging thing where you feel like no one gets you. And Alex Hormozy has...
Oh my gosh, obsessed.
We're obsessed with you, Hormozy. Please watch this. He has this quote, and it's like, I have it saved in my phone because it's literally where I'm at. And it's this thing where you're like, you aren't successful enough to be surrounded by the people you want to be surrounded by, but all the people that are your friends think you're weird.
I actually heard him on a podcast talking about that, and he was like basically saying that there's this big gap between when all your friends think you're weird and then you like go up to that sort of stage where people get you and it's like your people.
Yeah. To be able to roll in that kind of level, it requires a level of success to get there, to be in that space. And between the two is where I feel I am.
Yeah.
Where it's like, so I feel so different to everyone. I feel different to my friends. I feel different to anyone I meet. It makes everything hard. It makes dating hard. It makes everything challenging. And also too, like even girls' weekends, like I struggle with because I'm not a girl's girl. You know, I am the biggest hype girl and the biggest supporter to any female, but the mediocre basic conversation that fills people's lives on a day-to-day basis, I have zero desire
same
to engage in.
Yeah, it's really hard because people are like, oh, what's your hobbies? And like, look, I've got lots of things I like doing outside of business, but like I love it. I love it when I can like grab a hold of someone like yourself and just be like, oh my gosh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Like it fills up my cup. And, you know, someone yesterday asked me like, oh, did you go to mum groups? And I was like, no, I did not go to mum's groups because and there's nothing wrong with them. Like they're amazing. But for me, I was like, I can't talk about the things you're talking about.
Yes.
Like I just feel bored.
Yes.
Like it's just hard. And it's not that I feel like the things that other people are talking about is not right or just as good or anything like that. It's just like different. And it's hard to find other people who fit into the interests and the things that I have in this space.
I have a question for you. Have you always felt different?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's actually something I've recently reflected on that I feel like, so obviously not drinking is like, so not drinking alcohol is like on trend, right? Like everyone's doing it. I haven't really like been a big drinker for a while, but what I have noticed is that in situations where I feel like, you know, in social situations where people are drinking and I choose to drink, it is always times where I'm bored.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, how can we pass the time?
Yes.
Okay, there's no one here to like stimulate my mind. And when I actually think back to like the past and been through big stages of drinking and going out and doing all that stuff, I reckon that has always been the reason. Like I'm either like anxious because it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I'm quite good at stepping out of my comfort zone, or I'm just bored and I'm like, okay, what's the quickest way we're going to get through this?
Yes.
You know, like how am I going to make this fun for myself?
Yes.
And yeah, so like that's why I sort of chosen like not really to drink, you know, much or whatever. But yeah, I think when I think back even like 10 or however long I've been drinking for, I reckon it's always felt like that. And it's because I've always felt like a little bit different to everyone else. I mean, I went to a high school in like a more of a lower socioeconomic area, like high school. And when I left high school, I went to college. And that was like the first time that I was like, when I say college, I lived on campus at uni. And none of the friends I had from high school went to uni. Like they all kind of like did other things. Like they just weren't my people.
Yeah.
And when I went to uni, it was kind of like, oh, okay, there's people who are like a bit more like me, like a bit more stimulated by the same things, like interested in these things. And yeah, so I guess to answer your question, I do feel like I've always kind of felt a bit different.
Yeah.
And then more so in different phases, like when I first started a business or different phases, I've felt more different.
I think the big thing, like someone asked me the other day whether I've ever been like an impulsive shopper. And I was like, no, I haven't. Like I never have. And they were like, why do you think that's the case? And I said, because I've literally run my own businesses since I was 22. The value of $1 has been so potent to me that I have never, ever had that. And I mean, there's been times where, you know, it's like, okay, like I need to get something for whatever, but I've never, like, these people that are like, oh, let's just go shopping for the sake of going shopping and let's just like spend. I've never been that person because I would so much rather put my money in other places and take $1 and make it $2.
Totally.
You know? So I've always been about investing and growing and looking in those ways. And I think it is just, it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
And this year, in the last 12 months, I've gotten really, really clear on where I'm going to put my energy. I felt like I was quite suffocated in my friendship circles. And I just got to the point where, I mean, obviously a lot of this comes down to going through like a breakup and what I went through and reestablishing who am I, what do I want, what brings me joy, and what are my core values, and reestablishing, okay, what are the things that actually means I'm living in my authentic self.
Okay.
And in order for me to live in my authentic self, I need to surround myself with people who value the same things. And that's been the hardest thing for me to do, because I've had these friendship circles where I was a volume girl, I was lots of friends, and all of a sudden going, none of them actually like sit well with me being my authentic self, because me being my authentic self, I don't fit that container. I don't fit that container. I actually am in this container. But this container here, to get to where I want to be with my friends, they're all up here and they're unattainable people that I'm not yet at the level at.
Yeah.
So this is, and there will be so many women in this space. We just need to find each other.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, can relate.
Which is what this is for.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else before we wrap up? Like, I'd love to know if there's anything else that you would like to share or speak about before we kind of, wrap it up.
I think, so to anyone who is in the same position that we're in or wanting to start their own business, anyone who is listening to this and going, okay, cool, I want to do this thing, I have this idea. I know I kind of said before how I was like, you need to make sure that you have, like, it's a viable product, it's something that people want to purchase. But all of that starts with starting today. And I think the big thing is we try so hard to get it perfect first time. And it actually doesn't matter. You know, my workouts don't look today what they looked like 7 years ago. As a matter of fact, I look back at what I did 7 years ago and I go, wow, like people paid for that. You know, because it's so simple in comparison to the layering and everything we do right now, the fully immersive studio experience. But people loved it enough because I was my authentic, genuine self. And so I think if you truly do feel like you have something that you are 100% passionate about, and even if there is a smidgen of doubt, do what you can to remove that doubt.
Yeah.
Because you need to actually give absolutely everything you have and just go for it.
Yeah.
Give it a go. And then if you're in the space where I was kind of saying how it's lonely, you feel like you need to, like your friends, you don't fit with your friends, you don't fit with regular people, like I'll go out and I'll see the like I live in the city in Brisbane, and so I can literally look out my balcony and it overlooks the city and it's like the cars, yeah? And I'm just like, look at the rat race. Like, I just view the world so differently to everyone else, where I'm like, look at all the people doing the things, and isn't it crazy how all those people like are looking for the loves of their life, and they're looking for, like, they want to buy their house, and like we all have this like Australian dream that we're all living at, and I just don't fit the bill. And if you feel like you are that person, I think it's really important to understand that you aren't crazy. You're probably designed to run a business, and also to get really clear on what it is that are your values and
100%.
what it is that would make you want to live authentically, for you to live 100% in your flow. My word for the year is flow.
I love
know.
it.
So, working in your flow so that you feel like your nervous system is at rest, you're being brought to joy. What is that? And then seek out those people.
Yeah,
to surround
totally.
yourself with.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the potty.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate you making the time, and obviously just working in my time, my very tight time frame.
No, I love it.
We love to move fast around here.
We locked this in last night, just FYI.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously thank you so much. Follow Bek on Instagram. We'll put her handle inside the show notes, and follow everything amazing that she's doing. And if you have any questions, obviously send them over my way or Bek's way, and yeah, we'll get to them.
Thank you.